All right. I should have the Endless Winter music playing in the background while I jump into the camera angle, but that's fine. Hey everyone, welcome to Fire Chicken Review. Thank you for tuning in, and it's been some time. As you can see, I have Endless Winter as I was muttering coming into the camera angle, which is, this is the Kickstarter version, so I wanted to get a review in because it has felt like an endless winter. Both myself and my family have been sick as a acute cough for the past couple of weeks, so I haven't had a chance to film everything. My little one and my spouse are out right now, so I got a quick little time to get a video in. I also want to let you know this review, I was gifted the large playmat that you see in front of me. It's not going to make it any more biased, but you know, it's always good to disclaimer that, because I reached out to Fantasia Games when I was kickstarting and saying, hey, I'm an amateur review channel. And they threw in the playmats, because normally I don't pick these things up because I have a lot of playmats, and they're beautiful. But I'll talk more about, does this help with the game? Does it hinder it? Does it take up more space? All that good stuff here in the bit. Right off the bat, for those that don't want to hear me blabber on and just want to know, do I think the game is fun? Yes. What do I rate the game? For me, it's an 8 out of 5 out of 10, and I'm going to go into depth, which is a little bit weird. A lot of reviewers, and you know, most times it's conventional to say your score at the end. But hey, if you're not interested in watching the rest, that's where I'm at with the game. I did get a chance to play it before I backed it on Kickstarter, which is something I think is a beautiful thing if that's available, if you're into backing GameFound or Kickstarter campaigns. And that's the thing right now, Fantasia Game has Unconscious Minds out, and by the time this video comes out, there might be like a day or two left, and I want to try to get the TTS demo in before I back it. So maybe I'll hit it up on the late pledge, because I'm just not sure yet, because these games are expensive, so you always want to make sure, and that's why I'm doing this review, is to just give you a general insight of what I think of the game, what some of my friends thought of it, what works and what doesn't, right? So right off the bat, what type of game is this? Well, this is a worker placement and deck builder, which is fantastic because I love worker placement games and I love deck builders. Like, card games are usually something that is my biggest thing. So anything with cards, hence deck builder, is probably going to be something that is going to be interesting. And what's really cool about this is every time you pick up cards, I won't go into depth about like all the game mechanics. There's some great videos about how to learn it, how to play the game. I'll link that if everyone wants down below. So that you can see that. But when you do buy cards, it goes straight into your hand. So there's just a fun mechanic that buying new cards going straight into your hand is something that is interesting. So again, an 8 out of 5, and I backed to the game trying out the TTS demo. So why is it this score, and what do I think is excellent? What works for me? Cosmetically, I'm a skin deep individual, which sounds terrible. But my family and friends will tell you that all of my games, for the most part, for me, except for maybe Terraforming Mars, are cosmetically beautiful looking games. So I say Terraforming Mars because it's that stock photo images that I don't like. But Endless Winter fits right into that cosmetic aspect. It is a perfect score for me. I think this game looks absolutely beautiful. When I do a close-up of like the game board so you can see it a little bit better, I'll be showing some of the art off, and there's actually some fan art that made it into the game that is really stunning, and I was really glad to see that come through. But cosmetically, everything's good. I love these miniatures and the wash on them. I know that Fantasia Game did a lot of work. They talked about in their updates to get like the perfect wash. I actually have a friend that paints a lot of models for me, and you say, hey, do you want me to paint these models? And I was like, I kind of like the way they already look, so it'd be nice to have like maybe a little bit of the base highlights and just a little bit more highlights overall, but I really do like the look of these miniatures as is. So yeah, cosmetically, the game is great. Theme of the game, the theme is great. I think it does come through. The theme is fairly strong to me, and it feels a lot of fun. I do feel like I'm a hunter-gatherer type of tribe trying to get my resources. But some of the pros and the cons, if I'm looking at what were some of the negatives for the game, is that teaching the game it's a little bit complex teaching it for the first time. I found that it took me about 20 25 minutes. I can probably shorten that once I've like taught the game a few more times. But there's just some mechanics that when you're looking at the iconography and you're talking about, okay, well, you have the eclipse phase over here, how cards work, how this area on this side of the map that almost feels like it's like a Catan board, how that works and stuff like that, and how general scoring works at the end, and talking about burial and all these items. It adds up when you're talking about, I found that when I was teaching it for the first time, and this is like the amateur aspect, of course, but when you're teaching it for the first time, you're like, oh yeah, this, oh yeah, that. I think there is a player aids, which is excellent. Actually, the player aids are how you determine who's going to be first, second, third, and fourth, which is that is a cool factor. So there's just little cards that tell you what you do on your turn, and that's that's really nice. Yeah, everything just the first time going through, it takes a little bit of time, and setup also takes a bit of time. So that's another thing. I have the Kickstarter big box version, and I think mine comes a little bit tighter. You can comment below if the standard version, because I haven't looked through the standard version, to be honest, but I'm not sure if it comes as tidy. But even that being said, if I can get my words out of my mouth, is that setting up all these cards, setting up the normal board, because normally you wouldn't have this playmat, so that is a pro for the con. And this is just the standard board, which I'll be talking about later on. But taking all this takes some time. And when I first brought this to my friend's house, because I couldn't play it here just because my little one was running around, it felt like it was just taking a little bit of extra time. And maybe it took a little bit longer than I wanted for my first time. After that, it still took some time. And the reason why I harsh on that aspect is that if setup and teardown is going to take you time for these games, and this is a little bit of a longer game. Like it's going to be about probably like a 2-hour game or so, and it depends on the player count. And your first time, of course, that's if you've played it a few times. So your first time is going to be obviously longer, especially with the teach. So when you tear up and set up and tear down takes a little bit of extra time. That means that you might not want to get to the table as much. At least I find with my gaming groups, people don't want to do it. And, obviously, as a big gaming nerd myself, I don't mind setting up. So I like to set up things, take my time with it early on so that when my friends normally come over, it's not a problem. But that's just something to take into consideration. So I've talked about a little bit of the complexity about teaching, setup time. And then there's a few other nuances. So what does the game do right, though? Well, what it does right is I already talked about cosmetically. It looks beautiful. The artwork is by the Miko, or however you pronounce it. I'm probably butchering it a bit, but you may have seen him from like the Western. He's very well known for the Western Kingdom games, and those are very cool. And all his artwork is very similar in a few different games, but this one, I think it really shines out. I personally love his art, and I think when I show a close-up of the art in here, you're going to see why I enjoy it, and hopefully you do as well. But I do know that even some people have been turned off because they don't like that artwork, so it's just potentially not a game for them if art is your thing, if you're skin deep like myself. So the artwork is great. But another small con here, and it builds up, is that basically the actions that you take building up your deck, you have these culture cards, and then you have these other cards in the top row that you buy here, and they don't change throughout the game. So like it very much feels like like you would have in Dominion, where you have the setup of X amount of different types of cards. In Dominion, I think it's somewhere like 8-10 different types. Well, in this game, there is 5 cards. If you have some of the expansions, you can actually switch them out so their actions do slightly different things. So that's good. But I feel like replayability-wise, if you don't spice things up and you don't change a few of the items, it's going to feel samesies. So some people may not find the replay value is as strong as I will, because I enjoy the game and I'm ready to get to the table. And after a while, you're going to find that you're going to continue to buy the same card. So there's nothing wrong with that. And what really changes, so instead of having where like Dominion has that set, what really changes here is that the culture cards, so the level 1 and level 2 culture cards that are the bottom 2 rows here. So this is level 1, and then after you get to round 3, you swipe them out, or switch them out, I should say, with the level 2 culture cards, which are a little bit more powerful. So that's where the bread and butter comes through. But yeah, it would potentially have been nice to see maybe just a stronger chance or more chances to pick up different types of culture cards, so you can do all of that. But there's reasons for the way it's set up, but that's just something that people are most likely going to notice. Another pro, though, is that I love these, just the storage system for, and I'll show it closer up, the storage system for each player stuff. You just take everything out and you're good to go. You're going to have your basically your 9 cards, because your 10th card you're going to pick depending on like your player setup. And yeah, the storage system looks great. You have also your player board has that double cardboard aspect where it's like 2 layers, so that everything fits in nice and tight. And I'll show everything a little bit closer, and you can see other videos as well where they go into that. It just adds, it's cosmetically appealing. It just makes you enjoy the game, at least for me, a little bit more. So other aspects that I found is that another con is that when I was teaching the game, everyone was understanding it, and I've taught it a few times now, but what I find is, and this happens for other board games as well, is that the strategies that new players will have, it takes a little bit of a while, and like it's basically, I think your first game or 2 is a learning game. So that sometimes players don't want to play a game just to learn the game and then have to play again to be like, oh, hey, I'm going to really enjoy it. Some people just enjoy it, don't mind if they win or lose, and that's going to be fine here. But if you find like, hey, I didn't really understand the strategy, you're going to have to play basically not a full game, but about 1/2 of the way through of the game. It's finally going to start to click, but because of that, it means that you probably didn't get certain combinations and the cards set up right away. So that's what's going on with that. And I found that my friends were like, oh yeah, if I recognize that, and I think there was even one of the images I actually mistakenly told my friend, was like, oh yeah, you get points every time, and it's supposed to be a one-time thing. So just small little nuances that can add up, but hey, that can be for anything for the game. Another thing that can happen because of that is that I find that scoring can be a little bit, it depends on if you have everyone that's played the game before, or if you have a mix of new players and whatnot. I found that my scoring, when I was playing my 2-player game with a colleague of mine, there was like a 30-40 point gap, which is, of course, the person was learning the game, and I was asked not to go easy on him. So he said, hey, no, play your normal game. So there was this huge gap. So you could see that with knowing the game and having good strategies, you can really rack up those points. So it's just really interesting how all that works. So those are some of the pros and the cons. But again, overall, for me, it's an 8.5. I think for other people, it's probably going to be a game that they're going to want to try to play again because cosmetically it looks great. But there's going to be some other games that potentially they're going to want to try out. So let me know in the comments, is this a game that you prefer, or is there a game of this type that beats it out? For me, I would prefer this one. I know I said Lost Ruins of Arnak. I actually prefer this much over that game. And there's a few other games where you had this blend. And for me, I'm very happy to have this. So that's me blabbering on. But let me give you a close-up of some of everything here so you can see. So just give me 1 second as I come out of the camera angle. And if you haven't checked out my video, I'll link it below. I also talked about, they released the music for this game, and it's actually quite wonderful. So here we go. So when I was talking about the art work that was made by a fan, this art right here, I believe while the campaign was live, was actually made by an individual, a fan, and it's just fantastic. To me, I find this is just a beautiful piece of art. And this is, of course, the two different tracks that you can go up during, like, usually the eclipse phase and whatnot. And on the left-hand side, it basically, at the end of the game, your food and your, I think it's like, what's it called? Like, just can't remember the axis here off the top of my head. But basically, for every, depending on what level you're at, this is, if you make it to the top, it's a 1-for-1 ratio, 2-for-1, 3-for-1 victory points at the end. And there's also, I forgot to mention the burial. So you can get cards out of your deck and you bury them. So that's a cool factor of basically purging cards. I call it purging, but removing cards from your deck. So thinning out your deck so you have more choices and not have those beginner cards in your hand anymore. But anyhow, I meant to just talk about the artwork. And I love, actually, again, this is the Miko's art. I believe he did it for everything because you can really see. And so these are the 5 cards that I was talking about up here that you can change up if you have the expansions. And so that they do different abilities and whatnot. But everything looks great for here. And here is, like, check out this guy here, if I can get my camera to, like, actually focus on him. So here we go. Oh, almost had him, I think. Try again here. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, just beautiful. I love the wash that they have on these characters. And yeah, I've seen a few of them painted. These do look fantastic. And so basically the tribe leaders, I know I said I wasn't going to go too much into it, but I really, actually, that's another pro. I do like how your tribe leaders have a special ability and they're can be unique to each other. So if you place them at a certain location, that's a really cool factor. And speaking about the locations, I do like that. Another pro, I should say, and because this is all off the top of my head, another pro is that I like that if you are the first person to go to a location, you get the bonus effect that is like printed at the bottom of these 4 spots. And those bonus effects, it's almost like getting a half an action more of an ability. So it really adds up. So I like the aspect that you might have a plan in place, but someone goes to your location. And so now you have to come up with an alternate plan. Like, hey, do I want to forego a potential bonus by going to this other spot? Or do I want to go to this spot, continue my plan, but I'm not going to get the additional resources I was hoping for? So this is kind of an interesting aspect for sure. And all the color schemes, everything really pops out. As you can see, it's just a really nice looking game. And this is the Catan board side that I was talking about here, where I found, yeah, it looks super nice and it really pops out. But the first thing that came to mind to me was I was like, hey, am I getting bricks? Am I getting sheep? Am I getting wheat and all that? Do I have to trade in this game? You don't have to worry about any of that. But that's just what it reminded me of. And then this was an aspect of the game. And please excuse me because I got a tired dad brain on the moment. I can't remember what this is called. Like, is it the monolith? Potentially. Off the top of my head. So I think it's monolith. So please excuse me. I don't want to look at the rule book halfway through the review. But I really enjoy this. The different setups that you can have for this feels kind of gimmicky because basically at the beginning of the game, depending on the player count, it says you can set this up like this, or you can have it so that it's facing different ways. So I'm just moving one, but you can have it so they're, as long as they're all connected, basically, but it shows you in the rule book. And so it will give you different potential resources options, but you always have to start off by going to one of these 4 spaces. These 2 are covered up right now. So that's kind of interesting. But I do like this because basically when you go to the bottom one, you get the whatever is printed off, and when you go to the top, you get this cascading like victory points aspect, and also the people on the bottom still get the victory points if they were other players' colors. So that is a cool factor, I find. But yeah, now when I look at this, so this right here is the actual cardboard player board that I was talking about. So as you can see, this board is quite a bit smaller than these two large mats. So this is a large mat. I think you're able to put this potentially into your big box, like if you got this big giant box like I did over here. But it won't fit perfectly. I've seen some on Board Game Geeks that they're putting it in basically like a map containers so that they can be protected. But overall, because this was gifted, I did want to go over this as well. Do I think you need to get this player mat? Absolutely not. Do I think it looks nice and is cosmetically appealing? Of course. One of the cool features right off the go here is that if you see here, the score goes up to 180 altogether. And on the normal board, it only goes up to 100. That's a small little thing. But also, it's just very cool to have a mat. You can just roll it out and whatnot. So if I didn't have, like right now I have it laid out on my table, I do have a nice gaming table underneath, and so I have that felt mat aspect. If I was playing on top of the table, it's kind of nice just to have like a plain mat, but I do have lots of other play mats, so if I didn't already own this, I don't think it's a necessity. And I think that for its price, I think it's priced wisely. I've had to double check. I assume that Fantasia Games has it on their store. I don't know if you can get it retail as well. I'll have to do a double check on that. The price though wasn't too bad for this, but I think it's a cosmetic add-on that not everyone needs. And but it is a nice play mat. So like I said, I have quite a few different mats. And one of the things that is excellent about this is that it's probably hard to see. Oh, no, you can see it here. Stitched edge, as you can see here. May seem like a geek thing, but having a stitch edge mat keeps it from fraying. So you'll see that right here. It looks like it's fraying, but that's actually just because like that's a little bit of an end. But overall, having the stitch edge will keep the mat from fraying. My biggest concerns with any play mats, and this is in a Fantasia Games thing, is that over time your mats from wear and tear will have they'll just warp. Like if you don't have it laying flat, it will warp over time. Like if you roll it up and whatnot. And when I say warp, I actually mean curl. So a lot of mats will curl up, and if you have it folded, you'll have that folded crease and all that stuff. Where like when you just have this, it's going to be a little bit easier. So yeah, that's the playmat. The other big aspect of why I say, hey, it's not a necessity, and sometimes I think I would play if I was playing at a friend's house, just on the regular cardboard here, is because you can change this up, because this is pretty chunky. This is a chunker, right? Like that's a big boy right there. And then you have to have this additional thing, versus when you just have this, you can set up the cards, even though the cards are supposed to be set up this way, you can set it up and orientate it based on the size of your gaming table. You could actually have the cards off to the side. You could have this off to another side. Basically, you can set it up wherever you want. And like obviously, like this extra space is just for this thing and potentially the other expansion. Same with this. This is an area for the expansion, right? So these are not dead spaces because it has room for everything to be covered. But if you're not playing with all the expansions, you still have to use this, versus if you use the cardboard, you don't have to have all of that. But overall, yeah, that's that. The other item I wanted to show here, to show behind the scenes, is that this is what the big box looks like. The storage system is actually quite nice. I know I just got this kind of all over the map. But you can see unboxing videos of people with the big box, and look at this, the Miko's art on the inside. Hey, that's pretty nice. But overall for this, I think this stores it well. So this does help quite a bit actually for setup and teardown. So I got to double check, and let me know in the comments if there is this storage system. The one on to the side here, what it is in the big box, it actually comes with all the expansions, just fit nicely in here. And here's a closer look of when I say like this is all you need to set up for to start as a player. So that's kind of cool. You can just kind of take that. Kind of reminds me of like Dice Thrones, taking your player box. But yeah, so this was Endless Winter by Fantasia Games. again, 8.5 for me. Fantastic game. I think that the game can run a little bit long, especially on your first playthrough. Teaching can take some time. There's a little bit of complexity. I would have to double check what the overall complexity is showing on a board game at Geek. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that Fantasia Games, so this is the game review to the side. Fantasia Games, and having their, basically, I think it was their first Kickstarter. What a fantastic game. What a good and, well, excellent run Kickstarter overall. Like, go on and check out the Kickstarter. Don't take my word for it. See the comments that people leave. Yes, there was an issue where I got like the French version of Rivers and Rafts, but that was a small detail. So ignore some of those ones that came a little bit later on, because that's not their fault. But overall, like they kept on letting the Kickstarter people know, say, hey, yeah, this is what's going on with the game. So there were some promises that they couldn't keep, and they said, hey, we're going to forge on and say we're going to up our standards and stuff like that. And even though they said all these things, like honestly, yeah, Fantasia Games, if you're watching the video, you guys did an excellent job on the Kickstarter. The game's fun. It speaks for itself. Like I said, I'm going to keep it in my collection probably for a very long time because I really enjoy it. But if this was of any interest at all, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Check out my other video as well. I talked about the music for Endless Winter, and I think it's actually great background music as a little bit of a spoiler. And if you enjoy this video, I'll be having more videos coming out when I get time. And yeah, that's all for now, so take care.